The Netflix documentary that took the world by storm, Take Care of Maya in my home state of Florida. That case and the allegations connected to what happened to Maya and her family have gone to trial. It started yesterday with opening statements. So, what I wanted to do today was give a very quick summary of what happened in those opening statements, the roadmaps that the lawyers laid out, and to get your feedback on what you think about this case. And I thought it was really interesting. So many people told me to watch the Netflix series on it. It was on the queue forever, and I never actually got around to watching it. And now that this trial has started, I've decided not to watch the documentary and instead see what comes out at trial. Now, I have some vague understanding of what happened and what the accusations are, but now after listening to opening statements, I understand legally what each side is trying to argue. And it's important to remember in cases like this that what seems fair and logical sometimes is not what legally is presentable to the jury. So we're going to have to keep an eye and ear out. And for all of those of you who watched the Netflix series, let me know. Well, this happened in the Netflix series. Is that going to come out in trial? Because I am going to be focused specifically on what comes out at trial. And of course, like this video and comment if you are interested in me covering this case. Because if not, I really don't have to, because there are some things I have to stay away from in this case for reasons I can't disclose on a YouTube video. But I am going to try and follow this process of medical malpractice and the other civil claims that Maya's family is claiming against Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital here in this trial. So starting out, Maya's family's attorney has accused Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, and I'll just call them the hospital from now on, of false imprisonment, keeping Maya there against everybody's will, battery, which is unwanted touching and not for a medical reason, infliction of emotional distress, negligent, intentional. We'll kind of go back and forth to see what the elements are that they're going to try to argue. And of course, medical malpractice, among other things, right? But those are the big ones. And there's a lot of wrongdoing and accusations thrown across the bow at this hospital. Now, how do they get there? Well, they say, and they explain the story about how Maya has suffered with this complex regional pain syndrome throughout basically her entire life, and how her family has traveled across the country having different treatments, some of which have worked a lot more than others. But some of the treatments that work, like ketamine, for example, are not FDA approved in the same way in this country. And that's where we start to get to the rub about what the hospital thinks versus what the family thinks will work for Maya. Now, they bring her to the hospital after a relapse or an exacerbation of some sort, to where the pain comes back after the ketamine treatment, according to the family, has been working. They get to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, and they basically begin saying, we think this is Munchausen's by proxy. We think this is a syndrome that's going on in her head, conversion syndrome, that this is not actually anything that's wrong with her. And they start working down the line of accusing the parents of abuse and control and doing this to their daughter, so much so that eventually they report it to CPS, and the family is sent away. And Maya is, according to the family, falsely imprisoned for 80 plus days in this hospital, where she's not allowed to do anything fun. They're not doing any therapy, even though they're saying they're doing therapy. They continue to say it's not complex regional pain syndrome, and they continue going down the line, separating her from her mom and the control her mom has over, so much so as a very religious family has the priest go to say a prayer and talk to Maya, and they don't even let the priest in, which is crossing all sorts of lines. And logically, we say, wow, this is wild. How does this happen? A lot of people were asking me that question as they were watching the Netflix series. And eventually, Maya's mother ends her own life. And that is part of the damages that they are claiming in this case. And they continue, even after the mother is no longer with them, to keep Maya for at least another week from the family. Additionally, there are a lot of internal text messages, emails, and memos that I think are going to be very damning for the hospital about how they talk about this family, how they talk about Maya, what they think is actually happening versus what's being reported to them. And then we hear that the plaintiffs are asking for $50 million in compensatory damages and $150 million of punitive damages to punish the hospital so they stop this action and they do not act like this ever in the future. And it needs to be enough money to deter them from ever doing this again. But the final kicker is this complex regional pain syndrome. While the whole time Maya's there, they basically are telling her she doesn't have it, regardless of what medical records in the past say or other treatments that have happened and what the parents are reporting to her. Yet what does the hospital bill to the tune of over $500,000 for insurance to pay them based on their treatment? Well, You may have guessed the CPT code matches complex regional pain syndrome. Very interesting. But then the defense gets up, and I think a lot of people don't know what the defense is going to argue in this case because they weren't a big part of the Netflix documentary. Shocker there. But the defense argues a very common defense in a lot of medical malpractice cases. People show up with problems. The hospital did not cause the complex regional pain syndrome. If you're going to find medical malpractice and damages that they caused, there has to actually be damages caused by their actions. So they basically say false imprisonment, throw that out because it wasn't our decision. It was CPS. It was the court. They made the rules. We just followed them as the hospital. Battery, they say every time she was touched, it was for a medical purpose. The negligent or intentional infliction of emotional distress, they never wanted to do any of that. They were trying to do what was best for the patient. But the medical malpractice, the final line said by the defense attorney, and I want to read it to make sure I get it right, was, we don't have to get it right. We just have to be reasonable. And what a sad state of medicine to admit there at the end of closing argument, but legally he's right. They just have to be reasonable. They don't have to get every diagnosis or treatment right. But guess what they did get right? Billing. They made sure they got that billing right in order to get the $500,000, which the plaintiff side accuses them of using because it's a higher billing rate. But the defense attorney did a really great job of pointing out a lot of nuances about how, if this ketamine was working so well, why did she continue to have these relapses? Why did she continue to have this pain? She actually came to All Children's Hospital. We did these treatments and therapies for those few months, and she actually left in a much better position than she was in now, or when she showed up. Additionally, there's been some awkward conversations about the mother who's no longer with us and how the defense actually, or the plaintiff said they have memos by the defense saying she's better off without her mom. And the defense makes an argument that, well, her mom is no longer in the picture. They don't outright say it is abuse. They don't outright say manipulation, that the mom was a problem, but they do say, look at Maya now. In school, dating, happy, reasonably healthy. So there are going to be some uncomfortable conversations and statements made by both sides in this case. But the defense's argument is going to be, she showed up. We did everything the way we're supposed to. A bunch of experts are going to show up and say, this was a very difficult and complex case. There were things that were happening that made us think it was not complex regional pain syndrome. That was a diagnosis that we threw out there. That's why we billed it. We didn't bill everything on it. So it's going to be very back and forth here, but there's a lot of inflammatory facts that I think are going to inflame the passions of the jury. I think a lot of them were seen on Netflix, but I got to be honest, the plaintiff's opening was not a bunch of hyperbole that made me really hate the hospital as much as I heard everybody hating them from the Netflix documentary. But I think we're going to hear a lot more of that when we see the internal memos, we see the billing, we see how they treated this family and how they treated Maya. So they ask us to keep an eye out, keep an open mind until we hear all of the evidence. The defense said, wait till we hear the cross-examination and their experts. So we're going to do that. But I want to know what your thoughts are if you watched opening statements or just hearing that overview and how it compares to the details gone into the Netflix documentary. Now, it was a lot longer than 5 or 10 minutes, but I want to do this update quick so that we could all be on the same page about what's actually happening in court versus what was shown on the Netflix documentary. And I'm not going to be there to make that comparison. So hopefully you'll join us along for this ride to see what's going to happen over a multi-week trial. We're not going to do daily updates, but hopefully every few days or at least once a week, we'll pop in, discuss what's going on in this case, and hear your thoughts. So that's all we got. Thanks for being with me. I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who might be interested here on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, at Lawyer You Know. But on Instagram, we are still at Tragos Law. So look us up on there. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast, available on all major podcast platforms. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us, lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. Of course, all of these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.